game devs. We left off last creating our Unity project. And now we're ready to start creating our, our very first project. So to do that, we're going to just use some other people's assets, and we're going to learn about how and take apart someone else's project as well. But first thing we're going to do before we do that is we're going to go to game objects, and we're going to go to 3D object, plane, and see how it creates itself. One thing I like to do is when I create an object that is going to be like the floor, I want to set it to 0, 0, 0. That's the origin point. Now, every game goes infinitely in all directions. That's why it just goes infinitely like that. But there's always an origin point. We want to keep all of our work close as we can to the origin point. Now, a terrain might be 50,000 units long, but the origin point will be at the center or maybe at the start of where the game starts typically. So keep an eye on that. But put our plane there. As you can see, our Mentos are in different positions. Our little weird cylinder things. And I'm going to use the scale just to bring the scale out a bit. There we go. Much better. All right. And from here, I'm going to do maybe just a little decorating because maybe I want to get some colors in, and I want to explore some of the other basic stuff that Unity has to offer. So to do that, I'm going to create a materials folder. So my materials are going to be _materials. And in here, I'm going to create a material. Now, this material has a lot of different information, and what a material is a programmatic way to display information, glossiness, shine, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to call this one red. And it's not red yet. But what I could do is I could go to this little color box here and change this to red. This is the albedo texture. You may remember, you may think of this as like, if you have a 3D model, like a real physical thing, and you used paint to paint on the information, that would be the texture or the information. That's where the texture goes. We don't have any textures right now, but that's where it would go. All of the information about how shiny the paint is or how light hits it at a certain angle or whatever, that is in the material, in the metaphor. So we're going to select this little square. We're just going to go over to the red there and select it. And now that I have that, I can very easily just drag it on to whatever I want. I'm going to add it on to our little art sculptures here. Now, I don't actually have to drag this every time. I could select this one and go to Apply All. And there we go. Now we have a thing. So there we go. We have a little color. I just want a little definition. If we go to our game, look at that. That's some art right there, if I have ever seen it. Now that we have this, we're going to go to the asset store, and we are going to go for a kit. And we're going to type in FPS. And there's a couple different ones. Actually, I'm going to go to My Assets. Mine's already in. So the one that I'm going to ask you to download is First Person All-in-One. And so I'm just going to search for that naturally through the interface so you can see it. First Person All-in-One. There it is. It didn't pop up for me because I already had it in my asset store. And I would love for you to download and then install or import this into your project. So it's going to import and overwrite the current project settings. That's okay. And it's saying that we don't have all the packages and dependencies that we need. So we're going to install and upgrade them, and then we're going to talk about what those are. So we're going to hit install and upgrade. All right. So once you hit import and it does its unpacking, you'll see all the files. And if you've already imported it into your project and this is just an update, you'll just see which ones are new or not. But we want to import everything. So we're going to hit import. And I'm going to reload the scene that's asking me to reload. That's totally fine. And if you notice now in my project view, I have first person AIO pack. And this is why I mentioned the underscores are really valuable so that you know where your folders are and you know where their folders are. Don't move this around. Leave it where it is. That's just kind of the way plugins are. I usually keep them right there. And if you even notice, he misspelled first person in this pack. So keep it misspelled. Keep it consistent all the time. That's the main rule when working in code. Even if it's wrong, as long as it's consistently wrong, it's good. It's okay. So in here we have a bunch of different stuff. I wanted to point out one of the things that it asked for. It asked for packages. So if you go to the Windows area, you can go to Package Manager. And we can see all of the packages that Unity can possibly import, and it automatically populates. And as you can see, there's a lot more in here. So these are things that you may not automatically want in your project, but might want in your project later. So like, hey, I'm working on augmented reality. I need I need face tracking. I'm going to use the AR face tracking toolkit. Not everyone needs face tracking all the time, right? So why have it in your project if you don't need it? There's going to be a lot of different stuff in here that we're going to bring in later on OpenVR Desktop. And sometimes packages will automatically bring stuff in as well. So I just want to point out, and the one that it brought in was post-processing. The little check marks is where it's at. These are the all the different packages that you could possibly have. I just want to point that out because it's very confusing as to what those are, and it's kind of a newer concept for Unity. They're just now separating stuff out. So now that we have the first AIO pack, we go back to our scene, and it looks like our capsule scene wasn't saved. Oh man, oh shucks. I guess I never saved my beautiful artwork, which was my red capsule scene. Oh well, let's remake it real quick. Game object, 3D game object, plane, set it at 0, 0, 0, scale it. Make a couple of these. Rotate that one and move it up and then, oh, these are all just regular capsules. Oh no. There we go. It's even more artistic now. All right, I think we're good. I just wanted to make some weird, like something to walk around for our FPS character. So we're gonna go into the first person AIO pack. We're gonna save this scene this time so that we're smart enough to save it. And we can see here that there's a README, which we click. We can read through all of this stuff. If you would like to, I'm just gonna mention the regular, just use the prefab stuff. There's also a demo scene. So they have their own demo scene. We can go open up, and why not? Let's go open it up. So this is their demo scene. They have some artwork in here, and it looks like the character is going to be inside this box, and there is a little office. So this project is much bigger. If you notice, there is some organization here in the hierarchy. So the world is all inside of a game object called world. And these are just game objects that are nested inside of one another. And then the trees, so these are not prefabs. These are just objects in the scene that allow us to organize it. And if you notice, the position of world and the position of trees is very near 0. Again, because we want to keep all of our objects at 0, but all of these pots are not near 0 because they're inside of this other object. So this is how we organize. And these blue bits here are prefabs, right? So I can actually close that up. I can look at all the lights here. There's a couple different lights. I can look at the props in the room. And, hey, here's a vending machine. Remember that F command? If I move my mouse over the scene view and hit F, I can fly over to the vending machines. And I'm just going to fly in and take a look at that. So look, I can find the vending machines pretty quickly. Remember when I was mentioning that materials change how light passes through them? This is a different material than this, but that allows us to change up what we're doing. So I have the office room, and it's got materials: carpet, drywall, window lining, bumped glass. So this is the materials folder that they have. And, it doesn't look like much, and we're going to get into exactly how to create materials in a later time, or how to create really interesting like glass and that kind of stuff later. But this is just kind of an example of how it can be different. Let's just hit play, or let's find the first person AIO character. There it is. It's just a capsule, right? It's actually invisible because the player doesn't need to look like anything, but you can see the camera there. The collider is the capsule, the thing that the player is, the physical body. So if we hit play, it should run. And there you go. So this is the demo room. So how do we make our own little scene that isn't as put together as this? Look, we have a run. Pretty cool. So I hit escape to free up my mouse, and then I can press play to stop. So how do we make this in our own scene? Well, let's go to our scenes. Let's go to test scene, and then let us find the prefab under first person AIO prefabs. And there should be, first person AIO pack, and then go to first person AIO. This person organizes it a little weird. And then drag this prefab object right in the scene. And then make sure, see how it came into the ground? If I press play right now, it'll fall, your player will fall through the ground because collision is only happens once. Once you're through it, you're through. That's how you fall through the world in a lot of games. And because this character has a camera on it, right? The game camera, and we can see this by scrolling down. We see this first person AIO camera setup. So there's a bunch of information here we'll go over in a second. But because there's a camera, I'm going to go into my test scene 01 hierarchy, which I've put on the bottom right, and I'm going to delete main camera. I could also, if I prefer, select main camera and turn it off by using this checkpoint. Either way works because the camera is actually in the first person AIO object. So if I hit play, it'll work. And there we go. I can walk around my scene. I can look around. I might fall off the edge. Ready? I regret nothing. Do you notice how the floor is see-through from this side? So the reason for that is because this plane object has no back faces. So if I fly underneath, I look up, there's no back faces. Back faces are, think about it this way. You can't see the inside of something, so why should the computer render all the organs of the characters that you can't see inside, right? So since you can't see inside of it, it's not a big deal. Same thing for art objects. If you can't see the other side of it, why render it? It's extra programming processing power. All right, so now that we have this first-person character, let's just take a look at some of the standard stuff that it comes with because it's really nice. So we've got audio source. This is sometimes we want to play music or sound effects through this system. Don't touch it, but this is where it's happening. The rigid body. This is a physics object. So this allows the player to react to physics and see how it has mass, drag, gravity. So we could turn gravity off, for instance, or something like that. The collider is how it collides with stuff. But the real joy here is all of these awesome things that the first-person AIO script does. Now, if you notice, this is the code for, this is called first-person AIO.cs. So this is, this is a very condensed version, but if you open this up in, if we double-click this, and we're not going to code today, I just wanted to point to show that this code relates to our prefab object, and it relates specifically. See all these. We can look here, and we can look for variables. Well, anyway, there's a bunch of code in here, and all of this is what drives our prefab object. So our prefab object has the code on here, first-person AIO script. If I wanted to make a new object, I could drag this code onto this thing, and that thing could also be driven by this code. We don't want to do that right now. But let's take a look at some of the differences. So we can enable camera movement. Vertical rotation range. What if we set this to 0? If we set this to 90, then we can't look all the beyond up and down, and we can't look all the way to our feet. So we could change that. Now here's where pause button can be interesting. If we hit pause, we can mess around with this stuff. Actually, we don't even need to hit pause, but for safety's sake, not falling off the floor, we can actually adjust all of these on the fly. So we can enable player movement, walk by default, sprint walk speed. So let's unpause this. Let's see, walking like this. All right, maybe let's pause, and then let's change the walk speed to 10. Whoa, much faster. So we can do things on the fly. See, this is what I mean about when I reach over here, I just like to pause it. Otherwise it gets a little, vomity. Can the player jump? You can turn jump on and off. You could hold jump. There's crouching. You could enable or disable crouch. There's kick. There's stamina. So the sprint stamina bit. There's also head bobbing. So if we want to turn head bobbing off, when you walk, it's more of like a, classic retro kind of stuff. There's also audio that you can set up. All of the ground objects, right? We can have the footsteps react differently to each ground material. We're not going to set this up right now, but this is just kind of where it's at. And you just have to give each ground a different physics material so that it knows which one it is. So there's a bunch of different stuff in here. It's really awesome. But with all of this together, I'm going to put head bobbing back on. With all this together, you have yourself your first FPS. So your first game altogether, it's playable, or it should be. If you hit play and something's broken, you probably want to bring that up in Discord. But this is kind of all that we need to do. So let's save. And now let's talk about making a build. So because we're creating games we want to make and then distribute to other people, we want to give this project to someone else. So let's go to File, Build Settings, and your settings may look a little different. It depends on what's going on. I have these things deleted. I have to remove these. So I just want to get this cleared out. Yours might have something else, but if there's something in there, delete it. And then click Add Open Scenes. So my scene, test scene 01, is the only thing that's going to be built right now. And by built, I mean the level that's going to be, when you double click the executable or the WebGL build, that's what's going to be made. And then, or what's going to be played. And then we're going to select WebGL, and we're going to have to say switch platform if we're not already there. And once we've switched platforms, we're going to hit build, just regular build. And this is going to bring up a folder. Now, please try not to create stuff in this in your game project folder. I like to go to my desktop and create a new folder just for the build, and later, or maybe my documents or whatever, but somewhere outside your GitHub folder structure. And you want to, call it my game as a folder, and you want to open up that folder, my game, and select this folder. This is where we're going to generate a bunch of different files. So select that folder. All right, once we have built our WebGL file, one of the things that's going to happen is the editor is accessing something. You're going to allow that. If Windows Defender, you're going to allow Unity to do what it needs to do. The other thing is, now that we have my desktop on our desktop, we have these files inside the My Game folder: build, template, index. Index, if you've ever made a website, that's the home page, and we can't open it in Firefox. This is where Edge comes in. But if we open with Microsoft Edge, it loads Unity, my game. And look at that. We can move around in a first-person character. We can even hit Shift and look at the stuff going by. We can collide with these objects while going. I think we go through those ones. Yeah. So lots of cool stuff. You have your build. So how do you get it to me? How do you hand it in? Well, what I want you to do is set this folder's name to whatever the assignment is. Thompson, let's say it's prototype. And I'm going to drag this DMD 2500 prototype, the folder and everything in it, into GitHub. And let me pull GitHub up first. And I'm going to bring it into the DMD Games repository. I'm going to show my repository in Explorer. DMD Games, I'm going to navigate to Spring 2020, DMD 2500. I'm going to go into my folder. And then I'm going to add this set of files, desktop. I'm going to add this set of files in its entirety to this assignment folder. There you go. So you can copy it if you would like instead. So now that we have it here, if we check this DMD Games, we're going to say adding my prototype submission. Okay. And I'm going to commit to Thompson K, and then I'm going to push. And then I always love going to the website and just verifying everything got where it was supposed to go. So I'm on the master branch, and if I hit refresh, nothing's there. So remember, you're on your own branch. Go to Thompson K. Look at that, prototype right there, index file. And we can even see all the code there. So this is how I want you to hand in your homework. This is the stuff I'm expecting in the folder, not as well as anything else that the assignment might require, video, pictures, that kind of thing. If you have those kind of videos and pictures, put them also in this folder in the prototype or whatever it is for your assignment. All right, that's about it. I will see you in class.